Welcome back to Spiritually Awkward. Some woo-woo, mostly wisdom. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Kaylee.
So today
And
our topic is psychic gifts. So take it away,
and
Kaylee.
like gifts and all that jazz.
Oh, jazz.
So today we are discussing one of the facets of how we connect to the universe, and that is our psychic ability that we all inherently have because we exist.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about like carnival tents with a lady with a crystal ball. Like I'm talking about our direct connection to the universe as a piece of it. And the way that we all have the ability to tap into it. So when we hear about psychics, right, we often also comes with the clairs. We've all heard of the clairs. So what are some of the clairs?
Right. So a lot of people may not even know that these are a thing. So this is the way in which you receive the information psychically. So a couple of them are, I'll just go through the list. So clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. So when you are seeing visuals in your mind, or maybe even seeing things in your space appearing that aren't physically there, but they're there as a sign, or they're there to help you understand. Clairaudience is clear hearing. So you're actually hearing like sounds. Claircognizance would be just clear knowing. So just knowing the information already. Clairsentience is clear feeling, which is when you are feeling into like if let's say you felt like this weird twinge and it wasn't really yours, or you feel like there's a tear rolling down your face but there's not, that's a feeling the physicality. And then clair empathy would be emotion, so feeling someone's emotions, and it's usually like it feels like they're yours but they're not necessarily yours. Clairgustance is clear tasting, and clairsalience is clear smelling. So when you, and sometimes these can all be different ways in which our spirit team or maybe your higher self connects with you through these different channels. This is how you're receiving your information. And this is kind of like the umbrella of the ways in which you can receive. And all of them, you could have all of them. You could have a couple of them. They might change. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, they definitely changed. Like
Yeah.
the example of like the claircognizance for me was when I was a kid. I just knew things. Like I knew what color of candle to use that I would tell my mom, and then just like pulling answers out of my ass about things that I didn't know. Like I just knew the answer to it.
Yeah.
And then um the the clear sentience and the clear empathy are, they're so similar, but like there's like a difference between it. Like clear sentience is the like disconnected
Mm.
experience of the emotions, the mentality, the physicality. It's like you're an observer from the outside. Clear empathy is like you in the trenches, right? So because we're both
Yeah.
empathic, right?
Yeah.
We're able to pick up that on a deep level. And
Yeah.
so clear empathic is like when I'm doing a reading for somebody and I pick up on a person and I just start bawling. That's not me crying. I'm not sad. That's just how it's manifesting. And
Yeah.
like sometimes people get a little freaked out that I just start bawling. It's it is what it is. But like
Yeah.
I'm feeling that so deeply that it manifests physically for me.
Hmm.
And
And
it's
that's
not that
clear
I'm like
empathy.
taking that into
Hmm.
myself. So it's clear empathy is in the trenches and clairsentience is the observer.
Yeah, I like that definition too. That helps people understand, like, because they are so similar, but one
Yeah.
can be more, I just kind of get this feeling, but I'm not really overwhelmed by it. Like it's not taking me over. It's just a little hint. But sometimes it's important to feel that overwhelmed because it's like you're noticing they're overwhelmed, or it helps deliver the message better. Depends
Yeah.
what on the situation.
And then for
Hmm.
the one, the not gustance. What is the one for the smell? I think I've already forgotten.
Yeah. No, it's all good. They're all kind of goofy sounding anyways. Clairsalience.
Clairsalience.
Mm-hmm.
So an example of clairsalience for me is like when my grandmother is around, I'll smell lilacs
Yeah.
because that's how she speaks to me. That it's just her
Yeah.
signature, right? Like she used
Right.
to have lilacs right outside of the bedroom window at the back of the house that when they left the windows open in the summer, I could smell them. And so
Yeah.
she knows that that's a comforting feeling for me. So she'll send
Nice.
me that. Or like um one time I was doing a reading and it was somebody's aunt and she was a smoker. So I
Oh.
smelled cigarette smoke and I was like, where is this coming
Mm-hmm.
from? I smell cigarettes. And she's like, oh, she was a smoker. And I'm like,
And what's
okay.
amazing is like sometimes you won't even say these things out loud because you're like, am I just crazy? Like I'm smelling something and realizing it's actually a deliverance of information, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, like or there was no explanation as to why you were smelling lilac other than it made you think of your grandma, and that was part of the like abstract for her. Like that an abstract is like the message specifically, it has a meaning for you sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
like the clear salience, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
these are all evidential pieces, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're okay, so we have psychic and then we have mediumship, and they're they're different. Um we'll go into that after I tell my little tangent story. But so the evidential piece of it, right, is like this person is coming to you and they're saying, this is me. I look like this. I feel like this. Here's some like things that would connect me to the person that they would recognize. So smell might have been one of them, right? When I was doing
Yeah.
this reading for somebody and I smelled the cigarette smoke, that might have been one of the things that would be like, oh, I know exactly who that was,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they just kind of do that. So all of these pieces, all of these clairs are just how you pick up. And I think that we put a lot of emphasis on one specific one, being like, oh, this is my strongest one. I am a clairvoyant. I am a claircognizant. We're ignoring that we might have
Mm-hmm.
clairgustance.
Yeah.
Like we might actually be tasting that blueberry pie that your aunt baked so well. Like we ignore
Yeah.
those little things and we pigeonhole ourselves and our gifts when we're picking up information.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't like to put a lot of emphasis on me being a claircognizant or having clairsalience because I'm picking up other things too.
Yeah. And you want to be
And
open to that
right. And
changing.
yeah, and getting a
Yeah.
fuller message from them. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be sending you a barrage of ways for you to identify who they are, what they're saying, what the message is. These are
Yeah.
all ways of conveying that to you. And if we pigeonhole ourselves into just the clairs, you're not going to get the whole thing. It's the message is so much bigger, the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And then
And actually,
the
I want to add to that. This is also really important for even if you're not looking to like offer psychic readings, you're just curious about, do I have psychic gifts kind of thing. It's important to know that it doesn't really matter how you're receiving the information, just that you're recognizing it. Like it is important to know where it can come from. So you can know what are all the different clairs, where could I be receiving information that I wasn't listening to? What are my guides trying to tell me, or what are my team trying to tell me that I have been neglecting to listen to? Where sometimes we go to psychics for that sort of a thing, but we also want to empower you guys that are listening. Like you can do this for yourself and live an easier, more peaceful, happy life. And that's why we think it's really important that you understand these things.
yeah, because if you are more in tune, it's like being like hyper self-aware,
Yeah.
right? Like you can look at the things that you need to work on. You can identify certain things. You can have a greater understanding of a person or a situation. And that's that's one of like my main focuses when I'm like,
Yeah.
I want everybody to realize that they're psychic. I want everybody to experience this, because imagine what it would be like if we all had a greater understanding.
Yeah. Like, hey, universe,
So,
what was that about? Imagine if you could get that answer for
right.
yourself. That'd be pretty cool.
I do that all the time. I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Like, why did I have to experience that?
And like, how many years have you been able to do that? Can you say, like, when did you first start going, oh, I could actually purposefully ask that? How long has it been for you? Like 4 or 5 years or longer? Your whole life? I'm just curious,
Or 4 years,
right?
yeah, like 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
because it was kind of like before I didn't recognize it, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like
Consciously.
we're still
Hmm.
pigeonholing ourselves into thinking that there is a certain way to do
Yeah.
psychic work, like that we have to be special people, that we have to meditate this exact same way. Like
No.
it's not like that at all. And once I realized that,
Freeing.
it's
Hmm.
freeing, but also I'm like, I was able to do this the entire goddamn time, and I couldn't like I had to go through the shit that I had to go through because I
Yeah.
couldn't like it was like it was a roller coaster when
You're
I
like,
realized. I was like,
fuck. Yeah.
the whole time
But it's
the whole
motivating.
time I was missing the forest for the trees. Like this whole time they've been talking to me, sending me messages. They've been, but it was in my
Mm,
head, right? And that's also another like pitfall of like very much focusing on the clairs,
hmm.
is because like I wasn't picking these up because I thought that it had to be a certain way. Like
Exactly.
I thought that like
Yep.
and that's another thing too, is like psychic gifts are not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Psychic gifts come in so many different ways.
Hmm.
Like for instance, when I first connected in and I realized that I had this, like the communication, because I was so new at it, and it's like an exercise that you have to do every day to like
Yeah.
to
Flex that
establish
muscle.
that communication and flex
Hmm.
that muscle.
Hmm.
They literally talk to me in memes.
The universe talks in memes.
The universe talks in memes. It was literally like they would send me TikToks and be like, okay, now I can connect like the situation, what's going on, because they would be like, okay, so you watched this video and this is how you took it. So this is what we're going to say so that you are able to understand what we're saying to you.
Mm. Was it hard for you to trust at first that it was actually spirit sending that and not just you thinking it and stuff, right? Like that is a really challenging thing, I have to say.
Yeah.
Like you're like,
Yeah. And
why did
it's
that
the
just pop up?
validation.
Hmm.
It's the validation for people
Yeah.
who are first starting out. The validation. They're
So
like, don't
important.
seek validation outside of yourselves. In this instance, I'm going to say that it is necessary.
Yeah. You need to know
I
that you're
think
on
it's
track.
necessary.
Like,
Exactly. So that you can identify it.
yeah. And if you're
Because, like,
wrong,
how are you going to
that
identify it
yeah.
if you don't get somebody to be
Hmm.
like, yep, that?
Exactly. Practice, practice, practice.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so I want to segue into I want to segue because I said I was going to talk about it, but then it got off on a tangent because that's what I do.
Squirrel.
So the squirrel moments. Oh, so psychic and mediumship, right?
Yeah.
What is the difference? The
Right.
difference is like psychic is more of like it is what it is, right? Like
Trusting.
we're
Yeah.
just
Like,
going with the
yeah.
flow. We're going to throw out this question and then get some cosmic answer, right? Mediumship is a very direct, very structured way of going about asking. So psychic is like throwing it to the wind. Like it's like
Yeah.
a boomerang,
Yeah.
right? Like you're just throwing it out there and waiting for it to come back. Mediumship is going, I want to speak to this person. And be like, all right, you person. Tell me about this. So
And prove to
it's,
me that you are you and how I can, like, evidential or whatever.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Mhm.
mediumship is very structured.
Mm.
Psychic is like chaotic, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, it's just a
Not
lot
like,
less limited.
yeah, like, and some of the answers that I've gotten when I've done I don't recommend starting out your psychic journey by throwing out the question, what are fourth dimensional beings? That opens a can of worms that like goes,
Don't do it.
don't do it. Start little. Start little. Start little. That's how you end up channeling
Oh my God.
for the first time. So that's the difference between psychic and mediumship. And then we've got the clairs on how both of these, psychic and mediumship, are perceived, picked up,
Right.
conveyed.
And that's
And
through like abstracts, right? Do you want to kind of explain abstracts a little bit, or should I?
you do
Those clairs. Okay. All
it.
right.
Yeah.
No problem. So the clairs is the way in which you are receiving those little nuggets, those little information pieces. But the abstract is your communication piece. Like, it's essentially how you are translating that information, how you are going to relay that information to the person or to yourself, if it's just reading for yourself. So let's say you have like the lilac thing for your grandma, right?
Mhm.
So that's an abstract. That's creating this like vocabulary with them. And that's the more you're practicing, the bigger you're creating that vocabulary. And you can be asking them like, I want to continue growing this. I want you to keep showing me things. And then you being really aware of the different clairs that come through. Don't be pigeonholing yourself. Yeah. Just like that vocab. Okay, sorry. Let you
Yeah,
continue.
no, that's a really important piece too,
Mhm.
because when you're creating this bridge of communication, right? You know how you like to be talked to.
Yep.
You know how you like to communicate, your communication style, like how you like to get information. You can tell them this.
Yeah.
You're creating a bond, like an understanding between you, your highest self, your spirit guides, and your team. We'll get into that also.
I was gonna say, who's them? Yep.
We will get into that because that's really cool. You're creating this communication. So like it, you can start off by saying like so okay, I'll break this down. So when something is trying to come in for me, yeah,
Great job.
when karate, when something's trying to come in for me, I get, when it's like an earth-based being, like somebody who has been a human being in a in a previous life, or somebody who is coming across to me as their human self, or things that we have like on this earthly plane. And yes, we're talking about like things that we call mythological creatures. Those exist because we think they exist. We thought them into existence. Yeah, we'll talk about that one too,
We'll
because
just
I think that one's,
let that simmer.
we're going to let that one simmer. So, and then when it is an off-world being or like a multi-dimensional being, it comes in through here. So earth-based is here in my stomach. My stomach will get tight right in my solar plexus. When it is an off-world person, it comes in like this. So like
This is just for you,
that's, yeah, that's
right?
for me. Yeah. So that's how it comes across. Yep, thumbs up. So that's how it comes across for me. And I set that up. I talked to them and I said, this is how I want you to, this is how I can,
Differentiate. Hmm.
when we're differentiating, this is how I want it to come across.
Yeah.
Earth-based stomach, off-world head. And that's an example of an abstract for me.
Interesting. I like that
Also that like speaking in memes too.
category.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, when we're first establishing connections, how am I gonna understand? I'm a silly
Yeah.
goose, so they gave me memes.
And this is like in the gift focus session, which you offer. Like when I had my first one, it was it was wild to realize that it was a body sensation. For me, it's a body sensation for a yes or a no. Like a yes for me is in my throat, and a no is like this warm flushing sensation down my left leg. And I was like, why can't it just be like a twinge in each hand? Because that's kind of like maybe see if they'll give you a yes or a no in each hand. And I was like trying, and it was silent, and I wasn't getting anything. And I was like, well, why am I not getting anything? And I'm like, well, can you just show me what you want it to be? And then they showed me the throat and the leg, and I was like, why would you do that? And they were like, so that when you're working on your clients, because I do aesthetics, I can be channeling and getting answers through my body, because I'll be using my hands. I'll be busy with my hands. And I was like, poof, like it blew my mind that I was getting that information, because it was very new for me at that point. And I was like, whoa, aha moment. It's a little segue there. Body sensations can be just answers in your body. They can be categories, like you're saying, different categories for different beings, like being open to the feeling.
Yeah.
Very, very neat.
And I think like another important thing is like, I mean, empathy is a big part of the psychic and mediumship side, but I don't think that it could necessarily be a standalone gift.
It's
I
just
think we're
something that you
all,
can have. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that we're all capable of it.
Yeah.
It's just like to what extreme, what depth. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
say extreme. That put it in a bad light. Okay, depth. What depth do we
Yeah.
want to feel it? Like, do we
That's
want the
mm-hmm.
sentience, the clairsentience, where we're observing from the outside? Because I mean, that's another thing too, is like the communication part. Like, if you are a person who has the propensity to be sad, go into depression, and you might take on something that's the hard part about being an empath, is that you take things on very,
Yeah.
very, very deeply, and we don't mean to, but like, so somebody who's had like, you know, they can set up that type of communication with spirit, be like, I would like to observe this from the outside, so send it more to me in the clairsentient way.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to talk about too, like, empaths themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of people identify as empaths, and you can go one of two ways, and I think that me and you are really good examples of like how we can come into the empathic gift.
Yeah.
Right, some of us just are like naturally able to tap into people's emotions, and then some of us come by those empathic channels as traumas, like shit that we have
Yeah.
been through. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, like I have been through an immense amount of shit that like I'm I have the knowledge of how it feels, and the emotions that go with experiencing certain types of traumas, and being able to have a deeper compassion because I understand
Yeah.
where they're coming from. and
You've been through
and
some shit.
I've been through some shit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm able to be able to connect with them on a whole other level.
Yeah.
And that's literally because I have been through the shit that I have been through. So often, like, when, okay, I want to tangent, but like a lot of the times when we're looking at our lives and we're like, why,
Yeah.
why did I have to fucking experience that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you put me through that? Why would I have to go through that? And that
If
is
everything
because,
happens for a reason, why? Mm-hmm.
right, it's you had to experience that so you understood. Because I often was like why did I have to go through that? Like, why
Yeah.
did I have to experience that trauma? Why did I have to like dig myself out of the trenches of depression because of this event? Like, because I needed to know what it was like. Because I needed to be able to connect to people on a whole different level,
Yeah. To pull them out of the trenches,
to pull them out of the
potentially.
trenches. yeah, to offer a hand, right? To be able
Mm-hmm.
to know what they experience. Maybe not in the exact same way that they experienced it, because I'm never going to
Yeah.
say that, like, oh, I know how, like
Yeah.
our first, I know how you feel, but like I don't, but in a way that I do. Like I know how I would have needed support
Yeah.
in
You
order
can
to do it.
connect the dots based on where
Right.
you've been.
Right. And then there are people who are born with just the natural empathy.
Yeah. And that's always something that actually kind of makes me think of, for myself, I can't say that I've had like extreme traumatic events in my life, but I've always just been so sensitive to everyone around me. So when I saw those videos going around that were just like, are you an empath? And then they're just like, yeah, we know you've been through some shit. And I was always like, oh, I felt guilty, like I didn't resonate, I didn't understand. But now I can just see that everyone's just different and it's okay. And I truly am I feel like a little bit of a weirdo. Like I like watching shows that make me cry. I like crying. I like being in emotions. It's a bit weird. And I know people are gonna be like, ew, gross, like toxic positivity. And I don't really care. Like, I don't give a crap. This is me. I'm gonna be me. I'm weird. We're all weird. And I enjoy emotion. I am very connected to it. I'm very sensitive to it. And that was actually what first started my psychic journey, was me noticing like how easily I could feel my clients' emotions that were sitting in front of me. Like if I was doing nails, I'm looking down at the nails. We let's say we weren't even really talking at that point, but I feel like I'm going to start crying. And I didn't really like the start crying, like I'm emotional, start crying. And I was like, why am I feeling emotional? And I look up and my client is crying. I was like, oh wow, like there's something there that kind of sparked that interest. Like there's something going on here with me feeling their feelings. What is that? And I kind of became to where things are now. But I don't know. Everyone's different and that's okay. That's what we're trying to say. There's no right way. There's no like, you don't have to fit into a box.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Trying to fit into a box is limiting yourself,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
in the expanse of what you can do.
Yeah.
Like I've been at this for a while. I still haven't figured out all that I can do, and I probably never will, because it's always going to change. Like
Yeah.
it's changed so much for me in the from them communicating with me in memes, and then now I'm like being able to pick up people that are
Mm-hmm.
are in need of. Okay, so what's happened to me recently?
The destination is the journey. Destination
Yes,
is the
yeah,
journey.
yeah. But like, what's how my gifts are changing now is that I I'm able to pick up. Like I know that all the psychics are kind of like beacons. They're lights, right? So if like there's an energy that is stuck and confused and wandering, it's gonna find you. You're gonna call them in,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how it is. That's when setting boundaries too is very important. Um,
And believing that you have the power to do that is so important. Just knowing, like, yeah, nothing can come in this space because I believe it so. Like, that is huge in setting
yeah,
boundaries and
yeah,
doing it.
and you can also like tell your team,
Mm-hmm.
like I can't, because sometimes we're not in the position, like
I need a break. I need this limit when I'm not asking for it. I needs to not be here. Right?
yeah, like
Yeah.
you can tell these spirits to petition themselves
Mm-hmm.
to me, and then if it,
And if this is something you're struggling with, like Kaylee can help you in a gift focus session as well to help you with your gifts if you're struggling with too like an overload or too much happening, right?
because like, yeah. Yes, that's why I'm saying don't ask psychically what fourth dimensional beings are. Don't do that.
Not
That's too
until
broad of
you're
a question.
ready.
You're going to get a lot of shit. Then you're going to start channeling, and that's a lot.
That's not beginner level stuff.
No, no, no,
uh,
no. But it also oh, so back to the like like what
Boundaries
happened to,
or oh yeah,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
boundaries.
The story. The story.
Yeah, we're squirreling.
Yeah.
So back to the boundaries is that is important too, as part of that communication with your spirit team,
Yeah.
is to be like, I don't want this kind of stuff. I don't want to see this kind of thing. I don't want this to come into me that kind of way. Like these are all things that you have to communicate. And once that happens, you start to relax into your
Yeah.
gifts more. It's not as like chaotic and traumatic
Mhm. And you
and
can
or
ask
scary.
them, yeah, you can ask them to show you how you do want to receive, how you feel comfortable
Yeah.
receiving, and you can do that too.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
boundaries are definitely something that I
Yeah.
highly recommend is set in place. Because
Mhm.
once your gifts start evolving, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can get really, really intense. And I was gonna go into um now I'm squirreling.
I
I'm
think you had a
squirreling way too.
story about boundaries that you were going to share, like what happened. What happened
Yeah,
that
it
you wanted
was.
to okay, share that story. And then we can talk about the different types of beings a little bit.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That's my, I'm excited. That was my excited face. My excited hiss. Okay. So it was like my gifts have been changing and I've been seeing a lot more activity in my house of like entities that are just like hanging out because like I'm a beacon. And
Hmm.
last night there were two that were just chilling and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? And then they started spilling onto me all this information and I was like, it's midnight. Not right now, people, not right now. And I set that boundary.
Yeah.
I set that boundary like I'm not doing this right now. Like I know that you need help. And when I know a lot of people are like you have to do it in a way you still have compassion for this being that like
Yeah.
they the the two beings that were in my house last night were recently deceased. They were confused. They didn't understand what was going on. And who are you going to go ask for help when you're walking through a grocery store and you can't find what you need on your list? You're going to go to somebody who works at the store, somebody the first person that you see, and you're going to
Hmm.
be like, "Where the hell is this at?" And I was that person.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be like, "Get out of my house, asshole." It was, "Hey, it's midnight for me and I don't think that I can help you the best right now.
Yeah.
Like
Go to the light.
maybe yeah, like I'm not the one that can help you right now.
Yeah.
You have compassion for them because like how fucking
Mhm.
confusing is that?
Yeah.
Like that transition is like what is going on? Like so having compassion, but setting
Mhm.
those boundaries too,
Yeah.
because like
You're not a doormat. You don't need to do
yeah,
anything. Like
you're
you
not a
need to set.
slave to the spirits. Like
Hmm.
you can still they're still beings,
Yeah.
and if there's a being that's not like making you uncomfortable, you can tell them you're making me uncomfortable.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so boundaries. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the types of beings that we can have on our team.
Yay.
So we've got us as a being, then we've got our highest self. That is our direct line
Yeah.
to source. That is the closest version of us to source. And in the past episode, we were talking about quantum entanglement, which is, it's like the synopsis in a brain, right? It's the radio tower for phones or radios. It's that way station between. So we've got our highest self is like the closest to source. So then we've got 2 spirit guides
Yeah.
that are our, and then
Balloons. The balloons happened. And
the
on the higher
balloons.
self note, it's part of you that cannot reside within the body that you are connected to at all times.
Yes.
And then spirit guides, sorry, continue.
And then there are 2 spirit guides, and those are like the Wi-Fi amplifier, right? Those are to help you like give and receive messages between highest self. That's the like ultimate translator. That is the like reinforcements, right? Like that's your muscle
Cool.
when connecting with your highest self and then to source. So that brings us to our rotating team. And our rotating team is super exciting and super cool to look at because it is all beings of all different kinds. That's animals, that's beings that have never had a physical body, that is off-world beings that you have maybe had ties to in the past. It may even be like your past selves, and it's not necessarily that it's past selves. We'll get into that in another episode. But it's you in other forms. And we even have like, as mind-bending as this is, mythological creatures, right? Because we were talking about how like the mythological creatures are kind of like a manifestation of like humans' thought process, right? It became like, it came into existence because we thought it did. Crazy. And the rotating team, right? So we have like a main team of this rotating team that will be for a particular like turn or event or like a cycle for you. So you may have like a group of like 10 beings that are helping you go through a particular event. And they rotate out depending on what you need. And you can call on any of these beings for wisdom or guidance or like having them explain something to you. So like if you want to know about like what the 1920s were like, you could probably like ask one of them in your team to come forward and answer some questions for you. And this is where the mediumship comes in as part of like one of the really strong tools is because you're pointing it at a direct group or a direct being so that you can ask them individual. This rotating team, it is made up of thousands of beings. And I know that seems like astronomical, that you would have a team just to yourself of thousands of beings from literally everywhere in all dimensions and realities. It's true though, because imagine every single lifetime that every single being has ever been. That's a lot.
Infinity and beyond.
Why would you not be able to have that? And like,
and it's not like, oh, what makes you so special? Like we're all special. And if you look at it, like if we are a piece of a higher self, who's to say that there's not a piece of our higher self that's someone else's spirit team? So just because they're in our spirit team doesn't mean that's all they're doing. They're likely busy doing a lot of things as a grander, bigger piece of themselves, and they're also supporting you.
Right. Yeah. Like it's like a okay. I want to liken it to like these beings are like a social worker, right? They have multiple clients that they're helping through like an event.
And they have a personal life too.
Right. And like one of the like the more challenging one to like that I had to wrap my head around was like some of these people in this rotating team are people that are still alive. It's their highest
Yeah.
self that's working in yours. So yeah, my highest self could be in your
Yeah,
rotating team. Like
it's
my
true.
highest self could be potentially have like a job elsewhere,
Yeah.
right? And it's interesting to think of it that way, like,
Mm.
because we're thinking like, oh, they have to pass on to, it's not like we have multiple versions of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
at all times.
Yeah. We are but a sliver in our human body of the true us that we are connected to on the other side.
Yeah. And to even
Yeah.
further that one is like how this kind of was explained to me is like me right now sitting in this chair doing this podcast is the part of me that the part of the universe that had decided to put more focus on for the time being. And that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
That like my consciousness right now, my singular consciousness chose to put more focus on this, and the experience that I'm going through. But like I'm literally experiencing other things at the same time.
You just can't
It's
see
just that
those.
right now, most of my focus is on this.
Mm.
Right. And that's not to say that, like, because there's other pieces of me that are focusing on me somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy to think about that. So I want to do a whole episode on that one too, because it's the
Ooh.
the breakdown of this one is like crazy. Like
Would that kind
my
of fall into time? Like, or is that a bit different than the time episode where we talk about how time is not linear? It
yeah.
might be
So
a
we're
might
gonna
be a different episode.
we're gonna that one, it will be addressed in the time one.
Okay.
And it, it's crazy to think about things like this, because this is where we split from like, okay, here's regular knowledge, and then here is the one that's like explodes what you thought you knew.
Yeah. A little mind
Like
bendy.
yeah, like what we were talking about, like these are the things that take our belief system and challenge them. And
Mm-hmm.
so we can go one of two ways. And so that's one of the topics that's going
Yeah.
to
Listener,
do that.
beware. Be ready for mind
Yes.
bendy if and when you listen to that time whenever that comes up.
Yes.
So continuing on to different beings and what they can all be in our spirit team. So we've got spirit guides,
Mhm.
which you said there's usually two, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then they're there for your whole life, or do they ever change?
So they actually do change.
Oh, they do change.
They do change.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like they're tag teaming,
Interesting.
right? So you when you decided to experience this existence,
Mm-hmm.
you knew the challenges that were going to come up. And you knew to assign people to be
Ah,
essentially help you through it, right? So
for those time periods.
right. So like
Mm-hmm.
my struggle time, like up until I realized what the hell was going on, even, right? I had guides that one was a deep, compassionate, loving person, being, and the other one was also a deeply compassionate person towards me, but they also had a structure to them because I needed somebody there to have structure,
Because you
to
didn't
be
have
able
it.
to, right,
Mm-hmm.
to hold me steady.
Yeah.
And so now that I have gotten to the point where I can hold myself steady and I understand that I am loved, and I understand that I have support from everywhere. Now the guides have kind of tag teamed, and I have a new one. We're still establishing a connection and like what's even going on right now, because when you switch guides, it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's confusing because you temporarily lose connection.
Yeah. You have to restart.
You lose cell phone service.
Yep. And it's a
And
little
so,
fuzzy while you're tuning the dial.
yeah, while you're setting up that new connection, that new the new abstracts in which
Interesting.
you're going to be like communicating with them. So I'm in the process now of relearning how to communicate with this new guide that I have that's going to be helping me in the future. And the from what I know of this new guide is that they are a no fucks given. They're a very strong individual. And so I can only imagine what's going to happen.
So you kind of embody that. Do you find like they try to influence you for the best version of you?
Right.
Okay.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
I'm like a little, like we're all little toddlers, and
Mhm.
it's the point where we're just barely learning to walk, right? We're all little babies and we're all learning to walk, right? And we kind of stumble and, like walk like a drunken sailor. They're kind of like, it's like they're like chasing behind us, like with their hands out, like, oh, they're gonna fall, but they're letting us do it.
Yeah. And they're
They're
leading by
letting,
example as well.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And then if we turn around and be like, am I doing a good job? They're like, yep.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah,
Cute.
good job.
Yeah.
And so that's how they kind of appear to me. But yeah, so spirit guides can change. And you normally set that up before you come here.
Yeah, before you start this life as you
Yes.
in the spirit world. So when we're talking about spirit guides, they may not necessarily be human leading, like ancestral, like they may actually be other things. So maybe like that's like right. I'm guessing that's true. So then we can talk about the different kinds of beings that can be in our team as well as our spirit guides. So higher dimensional beings. What else do we have?
Yeah, so we have higher dimensional beings. We
Yeah.
have what we call aliens.
Mm-hmm.
We have mythological creatures. We have humans currently alive, past other versions of ourselves, not past selves, because yeah. So we have ancestors from this lifetime and from other lifetimes.
Which is human ancestors, like human beings, or potentially
Or
other.
all of them.
Okay, very cool. So if you've had a life as an alien, you could have ancestral aliens. Anything's possible here. No limits.
No, there really isn't. There really isn't. Because this team is formed knowing that you're going to need all of the knowledge and wisdom that you could possibly get.
Yeah, because you come here forgetting.
Yeah.
So they're there to help you.
Yeah, your mind is wiped completely clean.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes things are missed, and that's why we get those like recalls of the lives that we've like experienced before we hopped to this one.
Yeah.
Before our consciousness went from that one to this one.
Exactly.
And so these also, there's the beings, we call them non-corporeals because they are beings that have never taken a physical body.
Yeah. So what would that even like be? What would that look like? Like just literally like sparkly glitter dust energy form? That's how I picture it.
Like, so they can choose how they show up to you, or you can choose how to perceive them.
They could be air.
For me, okay, so they kind of look like little nebula clouds. That's kind of how they look like for me, like sometimes they can like try and take like a human form.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a little weird
And this could
because
be like us not quite understanding dimensions and things as well. Like it's
yeah,
hard for us to even conceptualize it
yeah,
because we
yeah,
live in a
and
3D world.
yeah, and that's another thing too is like anyone on your rotating team can appear to you. It's kind of a mix between like they appear how they think that you would best understand or like under perceive almost like the best
Yeah.
way that wouldn't freak you out.
Right. So they may even take an example in your mind that would seem normal to you to help you.
Hmm.
They may not be like the truth of what they actually look like, but it's the way in which you will feel about that visual or that feeling that will feel safe and make you okay. They want to make sure that when they come across to you that it's something you can take.
Yeah, or they can choose how they want to appear.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
or like they'll do it based off of your preferences or they'll do it, they do it on theirs. I mean, either way,
Hmm.
you'll still be able to identify who it is.
Yeah.
So sometimes like when I'm doing like mediumship and I'm picking up somebody and I'm like, this is a young man and like da 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 da, he's wearing like this kind of thing. It feels like it's like this time period, and they're like, and then it ends up being their grandfather, but like he's appearing to choose as he's
Choosing.
choosing to appear
Mhm.
as his younger self.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's how he wanted to come across.
Yeah. And maybe there was a picture of him that sparked for them in their mind of like, I want you to remember me like this,
Hmm.
youthful, happy, I'm doing good. Don't think of me as that sick version or whatever the case may be
Yeah,
that might be
yeah,
disturbing. And they don't want you to hold on to that. So
yeah.
they'll
It's
guide
a
that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yes. And then so back to the non-corporeals. So to me they look like little like cloud nebulas, right? And
Mhm.
like I know that like most people are familiar with like the Rick and Morty cartoon. But it's the episode where they have that like multi-dimensional being and he's like a little cloud with like little lights in him and he's like, get your fart, and he's like, fart, I like that name. Every single time
So
I
they
hear
show up to
non-corporeal.
you?
Yeah, that's how like the
That's cute.
non-corporeals, like that's exactly what I see every time it's a
Hmm.
non-corporeal. Fart, I like that
Interesting.
name. Like, get
So
your
they
fart and get in the spaceship. Like,
it's cute.
like
It's like they're trying to make
every
it funny,
time.
right? They're trying to like,
Yeah,
that's really funny. Ah,
yeah. And then like the really cool thing about spirit guides is like they you chose them because they knew you.
mhm.
They know you on the one of the deepest levels,
Yeah,
right? They know
as a
how
soul
you're going to react to things. They know how you're, and you chose them based on that knowledge of you.
to help
Like
you.
you went into like lengths
Yeah.
at explaining like when I start freaking out, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna need support. Or they just know how to calculate, you know what I mean? They know you. And
Mhm.
so I mean, in a way, they are you.
Yeah.
They are you. They
With
embody the
knowledge.
essence of you, right?
Mhm.
And so a lot of people are like, dear spirit guides, please guide me. No, I'm like, what the fuck are you saying to me right now? Like, because they know that that's how I
Yeah.
am. That's how
They
I am as a human being. Like, I am a silly goose.
yeah.
They know that I'm a silly goose. And so I can talk to them like they are my best friend.
They
I
want you to
can,
feel relatable and relate to
right.
them. Yeah.
And it's at that level that you connect with them like they are
Yeah.
your best friend because you appointed them because they knew you so well.
Mhm. So don't look at it like an impossible task, like a really hard thing to channel and connect with because it's not meant to be that.
No,
Yeah.
no. I remember
Hmm.
like I was doing a I was doing a reading and I was like, I made this face and they're like, what? And I was like, oh my God, they're just being so like I was like, what do you even mean by that, dude? And they're like, you talk to your spirit guides like that? And I was like, yup. Yeah. Like, why would I not?
Yeah, they know what I am. I'm here
Like,
being
would I
me,
not
being
like would I
human.
yeah, like one of my like
Why so
best girlfriends would be
serious?
like, bitch, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how I would talk to them. Like if they were my
Yeah.
best friend, because that's how I am and they know that.
And I feel like it almost opens up the door even more to clear communication. If you're
Yeah.
clearly being yourself, there's a genuine energy in that, and then you're going to create a clear channel. It just makes sense. But don't treat it like it has to be some like you have to talk to them a certain way and you have to use no, you don't have to do anything specific. You just need to figure out what works for you, what makes you feel good.
Imagine doing that to like one of your friends. They'd be like,
yeah,
is this bitch for real right
like
now?
why?
I mean, if it feels comfortable to you, I mean, by all means do that. But I always encourage people to talk to them like they're your best friend.
Yeah.
Talk to them like they are your best friends. I mean, and if it makes you feel more comfortable or it creates the structure that you need to kind of hold them in reverence like that, I mean, do that, but understand you don't put them above yourself.
No, they don't want that. Because then they don't feel like they can connect with you more clearly if you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want you to feel equal.
Yeah. And so, since this is the psychic episode, I wanted to cover also like kind of like a code of ethics, right? With being able to use these gifts and like what you should and shouldn't do. I mean, like morality is subjective, but there's just things that you inherently know are kind of shitty to do, right? And that's like taking the message from spirit and manipulating it so that it fits an agenda that you want to accomplish. That's like you're being able to use these gifts so that you can help, and it doesn't help in any way if you're purposefully misleading.
Absolutely.
And then another thing is like if you're reading for yourself, fine, but like also consider like when you're reading for others or when you're doing a reading for yourself, like what it would feel like if somebody got into your business, right? If they were able to have access to the depths of you and they were meddling around in there, and who God knows what they're going to do with that information, right? Like that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. So don't do that.
Don't do that to other people. Like, so one of my main rules for being a reader who is tapped in, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And I don't like to look into things that are none of my business.
Yeah.
If I don't have permission to look at those things, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I mean, curiosity kills the cat sometimes, but like it feels icky to like spy on people using your gifts.
It's kind of that karma piece. Like if you're going to be doing that, you're kind of opening the door up to, oh, are other people doing that to me? You're creating this sense of like fear, and you're actually going to attract that as well. So you really want to look at it as, I'm not going to be spying on people because I don't want that coming back towards me in a negative light because I'm being in a negative energy. So it's like really look what you're manifesting, kind of what we were talking about on our last episode. Like it's the same idea. Being in a certain energy and doing certain things can cause it to come right back at you. And it's just not helpful. You're stepping backwards in your growth if you're doing it out of spite or out of, whatever negative emotion you want to call it. Like you want to be careful with that.
Yeah. And using your gifts.
The change.
Yeah. And using your gifts for like personal gain.
You'll get so much more out of not doing that than you will be for doing it.
Yeah.
Let the universe take care of you.
Right. So I had somebody who took a gift focus session from me, and their end goal turns out was that they wanted to use that to gamble.
Yeah.
They wanted to use their psychic gifts to enhance their gambling. And the thing about this is, right, like it kind of goes it blurs that line between manifestation and like abuse of power,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Because I understand that winning the lottery, if I'm to cheat, right, and I'm going to ask for the numbers, first of all, they're not going to give them to me. I've already tried. They're not, not going to do it, because it's essentially taking that lesson, that journey for somebody else.
Yeah.
For my personal gain.
Yeah, you took away from someone else who was meant to have that.
Right. And so, I mean, essentially, it's the reason that you're doing the gambling, right? Like if you want to be like, I really want my daughter to have a college education, and so I want to plan for the future and I want to set money aside, or, you know, I have extreme debts that I need to pay off, and once I do that, like I'll be able to like focus on other things. Or, you know, like it is the intention of doing it, but like being like, I'm going to get filthy rich.
Yeah.
That intention is not good. And so that's where it blurs the line.
Yeah.
And
you can't receive in that energy.
Right. And the universe will always balance. Balance is a huge thing for the universe. So if you're like, I'm going to use this to get filthy rich, but never give anything in return. Right. So let's say that like I won $100,000 and I'm like, ha ha ha. Yeah. Like I used my psychic gifts and I won $100,000. I've just now unbalanced the universe, right? I gained and didn't give anything back. So if I'm to take, I want to give back. I want to balance out the universe.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of where the intention comes in. You're like, I want to get so that I can do.
Yeah. So all this to say, it's important to really have a strong code of ethics when you're going to start tapping into these abilities, because we need humanity to be better than they have been as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. What are some ethics that you have?
I think ethics that I have kind of rely upon what my clients may or may not actually need, not just what they ask for as well. Like being true to like being able to say what needs to be said and setting them up for success with that. But like, you know, just because they want to know if X, Y, and Z is going to happen to them, they may actually need to hear something completely different. And being able to lead the conversation and not be steamrolled, I think is really important if you're going to be a reader. Like listen to the truth of what's coming through for what they need and have that intention going in and not just asking the questions they want you to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing too, but as like part of being a reader is like, you're going to have people that come to you because they want you to stroke their ego or confirm something for them, like create that echo chamber for them. And that's not always the case. And they get pissed. So stepping forward with your authentic self and putting that up front, because just because you have these gifts and you've been able to like work on them doesn't mean that you have to be a doormat either. And you have the right to say it. This is part of the boundaries thing. You have the right to say, don't talk to me like that. Like, this is how it is. I'm being real with you right now. I'm not really in the market for like, I'm not really like here to make you feel good about things. I'm here to like
help you grow.
I'm here to give you what you were asking for. What is the answer to this? This is the answer to this. Yeah. I'm a messenger. Yeah, I am the messenger. So don't come at me sideways.
Yeah. That comes with like, not getting biased.
Right. When you come into this, like, gift or the realization, and you start using them, like, people expect a lot of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Just learning
and
to guide and
right,
boundaries.
it's like, well, you can get the answers. Why can't you get the answer? Because
It's
the
not about
answers,
easy.
right, it's that's
Yep.
not what you need to hear right now. And I'm sorry that, like, whatever, but like, look at why you're mad at this and then come back to me.
Yeah. Where's this coming from?
Yeah, exactly. And is it the right time for you to hear that?
Yeah. So this kind of leads us a little bit into our next topic, which is mentality, the bridge between, and also 4D, 5D entities and beyond, like different dimensions, and how you can learn how to tap into that and help elevate your own self with that, like learning how to be a better version of you through understanding the different dimensions and what they really mean, using your
Yes.
own gifts. Yeah.
Yes. And like we were saying, some of these episodes require you to have an open mind because they are going to challenge belief systems.
Yeah, this is another one coming up. I
So
mean,
this is
today's
one,
was too.
yeah, today's was too. But this one's going to be, I mean, challenging to understand. And we completely recognize that there's going to be a lot of questions. So if you have any questions, please, by all means, I love talking about this stuff. So please ask the questions.
Yeah. We love it.
Yeah.
Especially after today, we had a lot of things covered today that are a little bit, controversial. And we'd be happy to field any questions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Because it goes so much more in depth than a 45-minute episode will allow. But,
absolutely. We did
but
our best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and your homework. What's our homework for today? For our psychic gifts, mediumship. Maybe.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So we were talking about how, like, I didn't really recognize when the answers were coming to me or how they were coming to me. So think back on a time where you kind of just knew something, or you felt something, or smelled something, heard something, and think back on how you received that.
Yeah. Was it possible that it was a clair?
Was it possible? Yeah. Was it possible that it was a clair? And how subtle was that? And could you perceive it again?
Yeah.
If it happens again.
Yeah. Pay attention to your, like, quiet conversations in your mind with yourself, because sometimes that's actually channeling and like talking to your higher self. It can be that subtle. It can be so quiet. So keep that in mind, guys. Pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then your homework also is, if once we get to 100 subscribers on our podcast, we're going to be creating a community on Discord for us all to land, to gather, and feel safe space to share. So share with whoever you think might be interested and might gain something from our podcast. This has been Spiritually Awkward, and we will see you again next time.